President of the Center of Globalization Studies, Assistant Professor.
Thank you very much.
At the Lincoln University in Belgrade, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
Department
floor
of
is
American University. Yes, thank you very much. Is this working? It should. It should. Perfect. Where is mine?
It's connected. Yeah. Okay. Just
Yes.
forward.
Very well. Ladies and gentlemen, highly respected colleagues, dear future friends, it's great honor and privilege to be here with you today. Especially when I see so many young faces, so many future leaders. I will present something which is going to be our future from my perspective, from the perspective of the Serbian guy who is studying those problems more than 15 years. Globalization of a crisis or the crisis of globalization from the perspective of Serbia is my title of presentation, but I'm going to skip on the end, on the conclusion. There are going to be still globalization of the crisis. We are going to have more and more crises. Globalization is not going to stop. Nothing is going to stop unification of the world. And third, Serbia is not going to make more problems than actually we made for the region in Europe. Should I go? That's the end? No? Okay. Why I have started like this? Because nothing is determined. We are going to make our job to determine how the world is going to develop. We are living in a world which is interdependent, which is more and more interconnected. The process of integrations on all levels of society are stronger and stronger. That is something which is changing our perception of the world. That is something which is going to change our way of living, and is changing. The situation where the guy from Thailand or from Asia is going to talk about Europe, and the other from Serbia is going to talk about Asia maybe, or the world, is something which is going to be more and more normal situation. Because all the problems are tackling everybody of us. We are all in the same community, we are all interacting, we are all interdependent. My research of 15 years gave me one definition which might not look so functional, but is going to show you what does it mean globalization in one sentence. The globalization is the unification process of human efforts and activities in the direction of accelerating the integration of humanity on a global level, driven by the unprecedented movement of people, technology, capital, information, ideas, and cultural values among states and nations, but in a way that neither the states nor the people do not control this process in desired extent. Nobody is controlling this process in desired extent. I'm stressing this part of the definition. That means there is a lot of space to work, to develop, to make efforts to make the world to be a better place. the world has seen many crises. And crisis is a Greek word, actually means crossroads. That means that you have some points in the history of the country, or the region, or the world, when things can go one way or another. Right now we have the world which is in a crisis. Transition period is taking place. What's going to happen in the world? Whether, as Chang and Tony told us previously, something is cooking in Asia as well. Something is happening down there. Some accumulation of the energy which can produce some kind of war can be felt. And we can feel, all of us can feel that pressure of information which are coming and going and so on and so on. And we can see that something is happening. Some changes are going to happen. But every change is not bad. But every change means that we are going to have some kind of stress. We need to adopt ourselves, but not only ourselves. The system should be adopted. If the system is not capable to adopt regarding the changes, there are going to be failures. Serbia is the great example how we have not recognized the changes, and therefore we have not adopted our system to the new reality. We have paid a big price down there. There are many aspects of the crisis which can be looked for regarding the global world. But I chose three parts: economical, security, environmental crisis. And I'm not going to refer in all details because there are more than 30 slides. It is not my intention, because the crisis, financial crisis, was elaborated widely. But several things should be underlined. One thing, general interpretation of the crisis is as a failure of regulatory mechanism and the consequences of excessive faith in the market and its strength. But Joseph Stiglitz said in his latest works, understanding of the economic financial crisis is like peeling layers of an onion. You can take one part by another, but you still can investigate, you still can research, and you're still going to find more and more details. Because for the students, I want to mention, only multidisciplinary approach is going to give results when you want to understand where you are and where you should go and what's going to happen in the world. There is no expertise on one field in social sciences that is going to give you answers. But also, this financial crisis showed us a very important thing, that those statistics, those analytical works, those predictions, economical predictions, are not going to give results, are not giving results anymore. We have predictions which future is going to show us that they are not correct. This crisis showed us we cannot rely on the predictions. To be cautious when you're making such a kind of analysis, especially when the crisis is in the ground, because it is very hard to take all elements in account and to make some decisions. There are lots of, I'm not going to talk particularly of those figures, how the world is, what's happening with the world in economical sense. Why? Because world is developing still. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, but still developing. There are changes of wealth. We have some kind of balancing right now. Asia is growing, South America is growing. We have stagnancy in Europe and US, and that is not a problem of the world. This might be a good thing, because the poverty is going to be lower. What is the main issues which we have not developed, and why we are going to have still a new crisis in economical sense? We have not made institutions which are going to reflect the changes in the world. There are no financial institutions, there are no, regulatory mechanisms in the world, there is no financement of the world. One man received Nobel Prize, Tobin Tax. He tried to implement the idea, he generated the idea of taxing all transactions in a favor to finance the world institutions which are facing the challenges of the world. That was his idea, but still not implemented. But regulatory mechanisms should be developed. I'm going to skip on the other aspect of the crisis, security crisis. Very interesting thing, of course, all of you are very well introduced that the main security crisis is war. Because we came from the Cold War and previously Second World War, almost all countries are oriented on a war's aspects. They're financing their armies to make a war, to defend their countries, to fight with the others, and so on and so on. Very, very robust armies, very robust institutions, and so on and so on. This is very big expenses. There are those expenses are very large. And in a time of financial and economic crisis, those finances should be transferred to the investment. But still, we are investing in armies. Maybe in Asia that is going to give a result, I don't know in which way. But you know, as we've seen from the Mr. Tony, who showed us that China is now the second largest investment in army, if I understood correctly. That means that the other sides are also going, Japan is also going to raise their budget for the army. All those aspects are going to face in one point, and eventually we are maybe going to have, I'm hoping not, but it could result in some kind of conflict, larger or smaller. Right now, there are no larger conflicts. There are only particular conflicts. And we have, we have problems with different kind of terrorism, organized crime, and so on, drug dealers, and so on. But there is no serious threat, especially in Europe. I'm going to tell you one story that was in 2006, and I had a meeting with some students. There was a lecture for my students of the Chief General of our army, who was also 2 times Chief of Military Intelligence, General Krga. And in one moment, he told that there is no going to be a war. That is 2003, 9 years ago, several years after the bombings of Serbia regarding the problem with Kosovo and Metohija. I was asking him, what do you mean by that? And he told me, there is no predictions, any prediction that the war is going to be in Europe in our lifetime. And this is very interesting for such a kind of man who is dealing with information, who was chief of the military during the war, during the bombings, because it is not the war actually. And that means a lot. That means that Czech Republic, Serbia, Slovakia, European Union should do something to change their institutions and to have some kind of collective defense, and not to invest particularly in defense, and to look for the economy first of all, and so on and so on. But what is very interesting, when I was discussing with one very important diplomat who is dealing with Serbia from US after the 9/11, the towers, collapse of the towers and terrorist attack on US. And he told me 12 hours after he wrote me, I have that message, Daniel Server, diplomat from US Institute of Peace. And he told me the world is not going to be the same after this. And it is true. The world is not the same. And you know why? Why? It is not because of the war fights, counter-terrorism measures, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to say. The world is different. Why? Because the cooperation between intelligence, between security organizations is more than ever needed. And is taking place. Because it is not possible by particular country to tackle the problem of organized crime, of terrorism, of all the issues which are challenging our security. We need to work together. And intelligence and security are formed to fight for the national interest. You know, this is contradictory in adjective. Something is very complicated to understand. What we are doing, we are fighting for our values. We need to set common values which we are going to defend. That is something with which we don't have to have any compromise. What to tell about environment crisis? Jakub is going to kill me and one day, but I don't know. This is not that day, please. What about environment? You know, I'm not going to refer on so many details on ecology aspects and so on. Kyoto Protocol, which was signed by one, not signed by the others, Chinese, US, and so on and so on. Because we need to be aware of our nature, of our future. That is something which is normal. If somebody thinks it is not normal, then I don't know what's happening with him. Which pragmatic aspects are going to allow us not to consider the problems of environment pollution? This is something which is not a question. But the other thing is very important, and I'm going to mention that because it is interconnected with the other studies which we have heard today. Population growth. Please consider the notion that in 80-20 were 1 billion of people. That was first remark, 1 billion of people. Right now you have more than 7 billions, but we reached 7 billions in 2012. This is how many? Less than 200 years. And we seven times multiplied the number of the people on this world. And the projection is that in 2050 we are going to have 9 billions of the people. And let me say the other information. This is very interesting information. Nobody mentioned. I'm not sure how many of you even heard about it. A few days ago, in China was the Congress of Communist leaders, and they made decision to rethink the. I don't know whether that is. Institutional proclaimed or something which is destimulative. They decided to allow people to stimulate them to have 2 children. I'm against any prohibition, even that to have only 1 children. But if they decided differently, that will mean something. Whether they want to expand through the world, or as somebody calculating they want to spread the market. Never mind what is happening, but they are changing their strategy. Those people should have something to eat, should have work. Because of that they prohibited 2 children, not because they want to accumulate human rights. Right now they decide differently. This is another change which is going to reflect, yes, soon I'm going to finish. We have problem of management, first of all. We don't have institutions which are going to allow us to lead the world in the future. You should all aware about that. Students, you need to think what to do, how to integrate. There is no leadership right now. In European Union, how many leaders, do you know any face? And you are satisfied when you see that face. And you believe that that person is leading Europe in the right direction. There is no such a leaders. We need leaders in any aspects of our lives. And all of us are leaders if we think about the future, if we have new ideas, if we look for the challenges, if we are ready to take responsibility. Don't forget responsibility in every aspect of your life. And let me skip to conclusion. Strong need for the global governance that shows up in the last decade sets new questions. What level of authority and legitimacy can be assigned to such a system which could successfully tackle the problems that exist in the modern world in the sphere of economy, politics, security, and the preservation for nature and life on our planet? The world system that we have now is such that international institutions and legal framework by which the world order operates represents the accurate picture of the historical model of the distribution of economic, political, and cultural power. It is a system that was unable to adopt enough quickly to change that have occurred in the last 20 years. 25 could be written. Some of the problem results from differences in the cultural and historical aspects that influence behavior at the national level. Another result from the inability of some countries to adopt a global value system at national level. Even Max Weber said that the institutions were determined by their source of income. We need to discuss how to finance global institutions and how to finance the strength of European Union is the regional aspects of integrations, as I mentioned previously in my definition of globalization, because the world is adopting, people are adopting themselves through those integrations to live in a community. Not to think only of particular interest, but also to think about the interest of the others. Win-win situation is something which we need in all aspects of our lives. Our analysis explicitly says that the process of unification of the world has no alternative, and that the globalization is not stopped or substantially endangered, and there is no crisis of globalization. There are still no real answers to the growing spiral of crisis, and there is no doubt that they will continue. And it is almost certain that we will continue to have a globalization of the crisis. Let me finish with Serbia with several sentences. Serbia is in a process of a changing. It is not an easy process. These days we have Russian days, and because Ministry of Defense is in Serbia, yesterday he came in Serbia. Also, several years, every year we have some kind of pressure from the Russia when we want to liberalize more or less and to speed our integration in European Union. Every time is the similar situation. But this time, I believe for the sake, not only for the Serbia and the region, there is a Macedonian diplomat here sitting in front of me. I'm very happy to see him. Not only because of the Serbia and the region, but because of European Union as well. We need to close that gap. We need to think about the future, the common future. We need to think about the world. Because the world is smaller and smaller, historical processes are closer, the changes are more dynamic, and there is no other way beside to live one beside another, and to try to look for the opportunity to cooperate and to become friends and to work for the better future of the world. Thank you very much.